And welcome back to the Zanpakuto creation series. Today we have one from, getting the name here, Soraka Krishishi? Soraka K. I don't want to butcher that name any more than I possibly have. And they asked the question, what is the Zanpakuto of Hulk? Now, let me be very clear. You did ask for Immortal Hulk, and there are technically there are multiple versions of the Hulk inside a Banner. But the problem is that the differences between all of them are not, I don't think are great enough to really matter in this case. So we'll just be looking at the Hulk as a character as a whole, because I think the Zanpakuto of the Hulk remains the same, because the Hulk is a kind of unique case. It is a separate individual, theoretically a separate individual with a separate soul from Banner, but that lives in the body of one individual, in Bruce Banner. They all share his body. They all share, trying to fight for control and all that. And yeah, Banner's got to try to keep a lid on him, but yeah, they all live in one body. But then you have to factor in, is there a difference between the soul of one versus the soul of the collective? And the answer to that is yes. I believe there is a difference between the soul, between that and, say, Bruce's soul. Like, Bruce's soul would probably be a very different Zanpakuto as opposed to what we're going to get with the Hulk. But because they're all still sharing the same body and sharing the same, and their souls intermingle with each other, I think there's a lot of room for crossover there. So first and foremost, given the Hulk, even an intelligent version of Hulk, is being driven and created by rage, it's a Zanpakuto that's mostly going to be a melee type. It's mostly just going to be a huge power tool, similar to what we got with, like, Jason Voorhees's, but with a catch similar to what we got with Doomslayer. Now, for Hulk, I do think it'll take the form of a Kodachi, because he's so large that even a Kodachi is at best like a dagger. Really, it's when he releases. So its release would be smash and burn. Basically, and the idea is smash and burn with range, more or less. But it's just smash and burn. And the name of the Zanpakuto, I think, is very easily Devil's Rage. I think that's a pretty good area to go with. That would translate out to Akuma no Ikari. And then you get, and this is kind of interesting. Technically speaking, that's not what it translates out to. And when I used Google Translate, it translates it out into something else. But I look at it in two different ways. I look at it as if I write the phrase out with Google Translate, which is the best I have to use, by the way, with Google's Translate. I look at it as the complete phrase, and then I use individual words to see how that looks. And as it turns out, the Balikai, Fury of the Devil's Rage, and again, some of the Bankai's names, some of the names are just, admittedly, not the most creative. I admit that. But point being is that the Devil's Rage, it actually also translates out to Akuma no Ikari. Now, that being said, it actually translated out to Akuma no Ikari no Ikari. But I just decided to go with the no Ikari. So it's kind of actually like a Minazuki situation where the name stays the same, but the meaning of the name changes. The spirit of this, I think, is actually very poignant to make it Bruce Banner himself. When Hulk is out and about, Banner is the soul of his Zanpakuto. And Banner himself is not a Boy Scout either. He's got a lot of rage issues, hence why he became the Hulk. So despite the fact of what we get here, despite the fact of what you get here basically for the Zanpakuto, it still makes sense that it's going to be a melee tool. Now, what is the form of the Zanpakuto, and what does it actually do? Well, my first iteration of the Zanpakuto, it took the form of basically a giant axe. But I'm like, that kind of works, but that doesn't quite work. What I ultimately actually went with instead was something more akin to what Love's is. I believe it's Giant Kanobo. Sorry, I'm going to just find the name of that to Kanobo, I think it is. Or Kanonbo. Kanonbo? Let's try that. Kanonbo. No, wait, yes, okay, Kanonbo, that's it. Which is a giant bludgeoning, it's a spiked or studded two-handed war club used in feudal Japan by samurai. Now, Love's has also giant spikes on it. I don't think you'd get that with the Hulks. Hulks is just a power tool, but it does have an ability to it. What I would envision for this Zanpakuto is something a little akin to what we got with Doomslayer, as I said, where it fed off of Hell's energy. Here, this is actually feeding directly off of the Hulk's emotional state. It's getting stronger and adding more features on it physically. The angry he gets, the longer he stays angry. So it might start off as a basic club with studs, and then maybe it gains spikes the more angry he gets. Maybe it gains more armor. Maybe it gains a blade on the end. Maybe it actually also grows longer. Maybe it's got like a whip function after a while. Like in theory, now it wouldn't gain the ability to create fire or ice or lightning, the ability to hide into shadows, nothing like that. But as long as it's a physical ability and the Hulk stays angry and continues to strengthen his Zanpakuto, then theoretically the abilities are endless there. The Bankai would actually... Now, I thought on what the Bankai would look like. In terms of what it does, actually, I think it's very simple what it would do. But in terms of what it actually looks like, that I had to think on it for a little bit. Ultimately, what I came down to was it kind of takes a different form of his World War Hulk outfit, where he's covered in armor and battle gear and stuff like that. So the Bankai, it would take the form, first and foremost, of these giant bracer gauntlets that would be wrapped around the Hulk's hands. This would basically be a representation of the fact that A, he's a melee fighter, and B, the Bankai is, enveloping him. He's enveloped by his rage. But that only applies to if he just goes straight Bankai from the get without any sort of feeding to his Zanpakuto. The idea I can imagine here is that Hulk would want to go into Shikai verse, give his Zanpakuto as much strength as possible, feeding off his rage, before it ultimately turns into this battle armor he's wearing. Initially, it would just be like greaves and gloves that are spiked. But if he's been feeding it longer, he's now got shoulder armor. He's got battle armor. He's wearing a helmet. He's just rage his Ryatsu is just firing off at all cylinders, and it would just be an armor that is completely fueled by his rage. All the rage and Ryatsu that's put into that armor now comes to full fruition, and this probably gives him an added ability to maybe harness his Ryatsu into in the rage in his Ryatsu. Into I'm trying to think of a Zanpakuto that's done something like Renji's, which Renji's does have one Kido ability to it. Similar to this, where it probably has a Kido ability. Maybe it's his Thunderclap, although that's just a pure physical move on his own that he can do. Maybe it's more two giant fists of power that come towards someone. But there would be, I think, a serious catch with the Zanpakuto, because it would already be amplifying the power of the Shikai as it is. How do you counteract that or amplify it with it being of rage? Well, you have it continually feeding off the rage. His Bankai, if he leaves it on for too long, will actually take away his anger and just turn him back into Banner. His Bankai, I think, is a time limit Bankai for the Hulk, and the Hulk would know this. And he probably almost would never use his Bankai unless an opponent truly pushes him that far. So, and there's also other disadvantages to this Zanpakuto. Obviously, it's not a range type Zanpakuto unless, say, the Kanobo is able to, like I said, turn into the whip-like form and is able to get some distance. Or he's able to, summon his giant energy Ryatsu fist to just beat someone up from a somewhat distance. But he's not going to be able to, say, missile lock someone like Soifon's Bankai. He's not going to be able to hit from range like Byakuya or any elemental type. It's just not a type of Zanpakuto for that. Ultimately, though, this is the Zanpakuto that I have created for the Hulk. Let me know if you like this Zanpakuto, and if you don't, that's cool. Why don't you, or what would you do different? Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one.